Talk about gender inequality. 67% of all mortgage agents in North America are males. And it gets worse if you go back in the 90s. Today's guest is Tracy Valko, who joined the mortgage industry 25 years ago. Someone who I have looked up to for the good part of 2 years now.
I'm still fighting the fight for equality for women. I really hold that flag high.
She joined the mortgage industry when she would be the only female in a room full of mortgage agents and would not be taken seriously because of her gender.
My first day, I was in front of 10 men that were underwriters for a financial company that held up signs and graded me from 1 to 10.
25 years in the industry and she still has the same drive that she had when she first started.
He came up to me and he said, "You know what, Tracy?" He goes, "One day you're going to speak and people are going to listen." And he said, "They're going to listen by the masses."
Tracy has numerous accolades to her name, including being featured by the World Leader magazine for being one of the most influential leaders in the mortgage industry.
It's a very hard profession to be in. I burn out to the point where I've collapsed.
She is a living proof that gender has no role to play in any industry and you can be a successful entrepreneur, a loving wife, a mother, and do good for the community. I got this award from her brokerage, which is Valko Financial, which says community heart-centered. I might be holding this award, but she is the most heart-centered person that I've ever met. Without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Tracy Valko, founder of Valko Financial. So Tracy, I always like to start with every guest that I meet. In fact, every person that I meet. What is it that shapes you today? What is it that I need to know from your past that makes you who you are today?
It's a great question. I've been asked this many times and I sit and pause and reflect. I think it's resilience. I grew up in an era where, women were told we couldn't go to university. We were told we couldn't aspire to have big dreams and big goals because of being a woman. And I just, took a lot of that conversation, even if it was family, that meant it in the most loving way, but just looked at life in a different lens. And I decided to, go a different direction. I always was a person of resilience and, wanting to aspire to reach my goals no matter what. So being told no many times meant yes for me. And going to university looked a little bit different for me. I went later on in life. I was in my mid-20s. I had to save for university, and I think starting my career started a little bit later in life as a woman. So definitely had some challenges. And I think that that's what's defined, I say I'm a resilient warrior because I really truly believe I am. And still being in a very male-dominated industry that I'm in right now, which I know we'll get more into, I'm still fighting the fight for equality for women. I really hold that flag high. I mean, I've been in situations at 19 when I was first introduced into the financial world on the corporate side, where my first day I was in front of 10 men that were underwriters for a financial company that held up signs and graded me from 1 to 10 on how I looked. That's how I entered into the financial space. So talk about trauma. I had that for 18 months. I wrote down a number of 12 months saying it would take me that long to save money for every penny for university for the whole time, not just 1 year, for the whole 4 years I needed to go, plus my living expenses, because my parents couldn't afford it. It took me 18 months to leave that space in that corporate world. And I knew at that point there that being an entrepreneur was definitely my path in life, because I never wanted to be in a situation where I was degraded as much as I was. And defined by a number, right? Because I'm a person. So, I'm 52 and it still resonates now. I still hold that banner really strong. I'm very proud of myself for where I've come and been in situations where I feel that I was confronted in a very similar situation, even as an entrepreneur in a very male-dominated industry, but stood my ground. And as you know, Navjot, the brokerage we're in is about equality. And it's about making sure we're all standing in the same line together and that no one ever feels that they are less than the person beside them or feels disadvantaged or, is, defined by a number, right? We're defined by in our hearts. So, yeah, that for me is, why I have the path I have now. And I think part of why my journey started later in life, because as women in an industry that we're in, we weren't given a lot of options. So I had to kind of pave the way for a lot of people in our industry.
No, I didn't know that, right? So
Yeah.
that's something that I didn't know,
Yeah.
and it's I always tell this, and with my coach, Matt, I always talk about we have had it relatively easy
Hmm.
because the industry that you come from, like
Hmm.
in the past, and not talking about the industry as it is, but in the past, it was paperwork and it was so challenging, much more challenging, and then on top of that, a layer of inequality.
Hmm.
That's just tough. Would you say that that's your strong why, or is it deeper than that?
I think it's deeper. As a woman, we pivot a lot. I'm a mother of two children. I have, I've had challenges in my family where I am very grateful to be in a space where financially I'm able to assist and provide, support when people needed it. And, I've got people in my family that are thriving now because I was able to provide that support in, health crises and challenging times. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. I think that as a woman, we kind of put our nose down and you're fighting the fight, not looking up, right? And you kind of get lost in yourself trying to prove yourself all the time because that's what you've had to do all your life. I reflect now and say, you know what, I don't need to prove myself anymore as a woman. I don't think we should. We all have amazing gifts, no matter we're men or women, or how we identify. We just need to make sure we got the same support around us. And that's why for me, like, entering a room and having someone's face light up to see me, that's the space I want to be in,
Mm.
right? Those people that cheer you on for the success you have to make you rise even higher. And that's what I hopefully do with
Mm.
everyone else around us. But it definitely hasn't come without challenges. I mean, this is, I've started a business twice in the brokerage space. I started it, 4 years before I opened up this time and was challenged because of men.
Mm.
And it was just the space I was in at the time and didn't have the support that I have, as you know, with my amazing partner, Suzanne, to help me, forge through some
Mm.
barriers. And now having that, Suzanne and I are still forging through a lot of
Mm.
barriers. We've definitely put the time and work in. And to your, starting in this business, I was an agent, became a broker. I had one assistant, and I used to work till 3 o'clock in the morning on paper. And we had paperwork, like talk
Mm.
about
Yeah.
paperwork, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to look outside of that lens at something bigger was what I wanted to aspire to. But how do you move through that transition? And, working on the systems that we have today to support you and the team and the brokers, that came through a lot of trial and error on my part. What was going to make it
Mm.
successful? Because coming into this city, I knew three people. That was it.
Yeah.
Like, I came here 27 years ago and I knew three people. And it was my grandparents and my husband. And, now, I kind of look back and I don't celebrate those wins of, going to apartment buildings back then and knocking on doors. I literally did that every day
Mm.
and went to every unit I could. Because back then you could go into apartment
Yeah.
buildings. And I had conversations with people. And I realized that it wasn't where the light inside of me was because of the rate I was giving someone on a mortgage. It was the conversations just like you and I are having.
Mm.
It's about the journey of people. And it's the relationship of having that connection with a person to understand their story and just listen. Like, I don't think life is complicated. I
Mm.
think we make it complicated because our ego gets in the way and we're not being heart centered with really the true purpose of why we're supposed to be here. We're just supposed to be here to help everyone and really love each other.
Absolutely.
And I
No.
think the world just looks different in a different place now, right?
No, absolutely. You talked about your childhood,
Yes.
when you were 19, and it was challenging. But what would you say to someone, or your younger self? What would you do differently? Or is there a moment where you said that, no, I have to change this? Because it's very easy when you are surrounded by negativity to be sucked into that negativity, and then you can go into dark places and you can ruin your life as well. But you got out of that. You just flipped it around. So was there one person or one instance or one experience where you said, this is it, I'm turning it around?
I'm just reflecting on that because I think there was many times, I looked at that. Yeah, I had a lot of negativity around me. I had a lot of no. I grew up with no's. But there was something innately inside of me that just wanted better. Like I wanted better, but I wanted better for my family. I wanted to better be able to support them where they couldn't see the light in themselves. So there was many times, I went through challenging spaces.
But why you? Like it could have been, you could have leaned on someone else in the family to do, to be the flag bearer.
Yeah.
But why do you think, it had to be you?
It's just.
Is it just wiring?
I think it's just in my heart. I mean, I didn't sit there or someone said, you're going to be the one, but there was always something in me that just wanted to be better than where I was. Better in here, better in my mind, just better in life. I wanted to provide for people and I wanted to be a voice. It just always was. I remember I was very shy growing up, and I thought, you know what, the only way I'm going to be able to do this is get into rooms where I'm very uncomfortable. And back then they had a lot of like beauty pageants in the community, and it's not something that I wanted to get into because of that piece. It was to get into the piece of being able to be in an uncomfortable situation and make connections with people in the community where I could potentially get into rooms I would never get into. And my talent back then was on speaking. And I spoke. And I won that talent, segment. I didn't win the whole thing, and that's fine. But I had someone come up to me after I did, and I did a speech on purpose, believe it or not, at 18,
Oh, wow.
purpose. Like, how would I know what purpose was? And honestly, I can't even really remember what I talked about. I don't even know. But I had someone, I'll never forget, come up to me afterwards. And he was a gentleman from the community, a veteran from Second World War. And he came up to me and he said, you know what, Tracy? He goes, one day you're going to speak and people are going to listen. And he said, they're going to listen by the masses. And I didn't know what he meant by that. And I don't know why, but it's always resonated with me. And I feel that over time, I think I have been a voice for a lot of people. I mean, we've served over 10,000 people in the community and outside of this community as well, with providing a house over their head, a place to create memories and families. So I think that's my voice. I think it's bigger than that now, but I take what we do, with such gratitude and grace. And it's a privilege in this industry. And that's really what I want to communicate, I think, across, to be able to provide people a house to live in. Like, we don't understand, I think, here in Canada, what a gift that is. Because many countries, people don't have that option,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. It comes with its privileges to be in a country like Canada. But for me, mortgage is, when I became a mortgage agent, I didn't know what I was doing, right? I probably still don't. But when I came to the industry, I thought I'll get people their first homes. But when people actually gave me, photographs of their first key in their hands, it almost teared me. And I was like, shit, I'm a small, tiny bit part in a really big decision that they have made, they'll always remember. So that's mortgage for me.
Yeah.
What is it for you?
It's people. I say I'm in the people business, not in the mortgage business, right? I've had many situations where, I was the first person that a family member called when they were in a crisis situation with health or the loss of a loved one. I was the first person before they called their parents. Wow. When one of my clients, she was losing her husband. I was the first one there for her. That is a privilege. That's an honor. As much as it was a struggle for me, and I mean emotionally, I take that with deep respect. There's been many times where there's been situations for clients where, I'm the one that's providing the advice, right? I'm the one that's providing them support. How can you not be showing gratitude for being in a situation where people not only respect you, but they trust you, right? So for me, anyone that's coming into our space, they have to have the same type of values, because that's the way we should live in this life, but in this profession as well. It's a big deal for us to get someone a house. It's a big deal. And it can create a life for people that they may have not ever been able to have, let alone have children and be able to have generational homes, because I think that's what we're going to be in Canada going forward. We're like a small piece of that, but I think we're a bigger piece of it. And I think that that's really, the messaging that I want to make sure that I'm able to provide, before I leave this industry at some point. And who knows, right?
What's your North Star? Because, beyond a point, when you have certain amount of financial, freedom, you are providing for the family is good, the kids are good. Then what's your North Star? Like, how do you keep going? Like, I see you on social media. I see you keep going. You still want to do well. You still want to, like, where do you stop? Like, I keep asking myself, where do I stop? Like, do you retire? Like,
I don't think you'll ever retire as an entrepreneur. I mean, you just I'm in such a good space and so confident in where I'm at and who I am. I just want to make impact. I was at a business retreat on the weekend and I was 7,000 feet above ground. Like, I was on one of the biggest mountains.
Wow.
In BC, Alberta. I never thought I'd be able to do that. And it was so moving for me. And at the same time, it shifted me knowing that there's just such a bigger impact that I need to make out there. And I do think that voice of, sharing my story on, my journey as a woman and being able to help a lot of women, not just in this industry, but just in general. I mentor a lot of women in different fields, is, I think, a path that I'm definitely going to make sure that I continue to go forward. Because again, it's about impact and purpose and making a difference in people's lives. And I go back to the same thing. It's just about caring about one another. It doesn't have to be complicated. So I think you never retire from that. I've seen people that are like multimillionaires and are working just as hard as they were the day one, right? So if you're doing good and being good, why wouldn't you want to continue that, right?
It's love for the process,
yeah,
right?
100%.
Yeah.
So that's my North Star. Where that takes me, I mean, we'll see, right? I think the universe will guide you when you're doing the right thing, right? And organically, as we grow on the brokerage space, that will, what I love about it is that all of you support one another. So it organically gets bigger and it's effortlessly because we're all in the same space together. And that, my friend, is the true essence, I think, in defining of success in our industry, right? That is an exceptional room to be in where there's not competition, it's collaboration. It's taking the best of what you do and bringing in the best into everyone else on how they can do it. And I truly, that's why I think we are a very unique culture in our spectrum where we're at right now.
But Tracy, that's hard to understand for a lot of businesses. Like, were you always collaborative? Were you always into partnerships? Were you always thinking that? Because I am honestly, I always work better alone. I've always been like that, right? And when I have to, get other people involved, it takes effort. So was it always effortless, or was it something that you can learn?
So that's a great question. I think you do learn over time when you're dealing with people. I think as an entrepreneur, we're extroverts and introverts. We're like this middle ground because I understand where you're in. Sometimes in big rooms, the vibe I have, because I'm very much, I'm very much an empath. So I understand and really feel people and where they're at and where they're authentic and when they're not. So sometimes you got to be in rooms where you just don't want to be in. But you can also make a mistake in bringing people in that aren't aligned with your vision. And I definitely had. Okay, I'll define. It's not a mistake. It's learning lesson, right? So it's a learning lesson. And I think that as you go through learning lessons and you close doors and open other ones, you start to build a better idea of who you want to be around so that you're aligning with the right people. And then you don't have that energy drained, right? So that, to your point, you can work with people, but you can put up some boundaries. Like, as you know, I'm in the space, but I'm not, right? So I'm not in every day speaking to all the brokers and agents, but we have coaches and we have support and mentors that are there for you. Well, that's just all part of that equation of bringing the right element of the right people in the room with the right vision. So to your point, I think you can, do the path alone, but I think you can bring people in when you're aligned with the right ones. It's just getting into that space in your mind and heart of when you want to have that happen, and the right people will. And you don't necessarily have to have a big room. It could be just 2 people that help you, right? And that's okay. I don't think there's a definition of having 70. I mean, we got 70 agents and brokers, but that doesn't mean that they have to be in the room every day with you. We're just kind of moving the needle a little bit together, right? Going forward.
I want to touch upon balance because as a woman, it's not just that you have to go out there and do well. It's also family. You are a mother. Like to any women who's watching this and, they're thinking that, how do I manage? How do I live a balanced life? How do I do well in my career as well as, take care of all the responsibilities that we have, in the society? So like, how did you balance this? Because you have been doing this for a long time now.
I don't think there is balance, and I don't apologize for it. I think that if you want balance, that's fine and totally acceptable. I have family members right now that have complete balance in their life. They do enough work to fill their bucket and nothing more. And they make sure they have a lot of personal time and a lot of time to reflect and do self-care. And I honor that. I recognize with people that in today's world, you can have balance and be successful, what you define as success. I didn't come from that world. I came from a world of fight or flight, of proving my worth continuously. And that has been ingrained in me with every fabric of my being, and probably why I'm at the point of where I'm at today and the success we've had because of that. So I've learned to not apologize for it. I don't even reflect on it anymore. Nor do I personally really care if people judge me on it, because it's the balance that gives me what I need to do to thrive. And, someone that like myself, that's so driven, I do make sure I spend time doing my, self-reflection, time to fill my bucket personally with meditation and, exercise. And I fully put that in my day every day. So I'm never drained of that. In fact, I probably even do it more so because I understand the importance of it. So you learn as you go. So I think that balance you need to define for yourself. Where that balance is for you that fills your cup personally and your goals and your business. I think you have to find the balance. Like, don't let anyone define balance for you. You have to find it yourself. And it might not be today, right? It could be in tomorrow. It could be in 10 years.
Tracy, I see you in the community, right? You form communities, you help them, you do events, you do fundraisers. Why? Like, why is community so important to you?
Because community is what's made us successful for where we are. It's about people. And when I first started in the mortgage space, as I said, I knew 3 people. How was I going to get to know people? And I thought, I love people. This is why I'm doing this. A great way is to make sure that I'm in the community as much as possible. And to do that, a lot of companies and a lot of charities were holding events and fundraisers, and I just engulfed myself in that. I started helping to then being part of them to eventually running them on my own. And it does really fill your bucket, right? To help and give back. That, we've held over 42 charity fundraisers in the last, it's not even like I've been doing this 26 years, but like realistically, those fundraisers we were doing on our own for about 15. So it's exhausting. It's uplifting. It's, it's everything in between there. But at the end of the day, I've met a lot of good people, and I've met a lot of people that are struggling. And I think that it even inspires me to continue that passion of giving back. So that's why I continue to do it, and we'll go for it. I have big aspirations for it, big goals of what I want to do with charities and going forward. So, I'll continue that passion.
Do you think every business owner should build their business on community? Because I certainly do.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know how you wouldn't. I think if you look at any business out there, or any business person that was successful, they either eventually have a fundraiser themselves or a foundation, or eventually be, consuming in that space of being in a charity themselves and just let their business run. If you look at anyone that's defined as, that success level, that's where you want to get to.
I also wanted to touch upon something that has impacted me the last 2 years of being in the industry, and this is specific to this industry, and I'm actually, asking for advice here.
Okay.
I do burnout. I did burn out the first 3 months because I didn't know, because I had a YouTube channel before, and then I put out a video that I'm becoming a mortgage agent, and then calls started coming in. I didn't have a work phone. I only had a personal phone. Today, I only have a personal phone. So there are like 2,000 people who have my number now, constantly calling me. I'm doing mortgages, I'm helping people, and even though I'm enjoying the process, it is exhausting sometimes. So, and it's not about me not loving the process. I think it's just physical exhaustion. So, like, have you ever, and I'm just asking this, have you ever had these instances in your life where you burnt out, and how did you deal with it?
Absolutely, my friend. It's a very hard profession to be in. I burn out to the point where I've collapsed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my son found me. And that changed my life, because I realized I needed to get more help, redefine and rechange that structure. And the universe brought me amazing people. I mean, Suzanne came in my life that's around that same time. And then we built different structure to be able to support the growth of where we were going. So I know it's a tough one. There's not a right, like, I can't give you a perfect solution, but as you grow, what's the benefit that you have is you have us to be able to look at that and give you guidance and give you different options. I had to kind of learn by trial and error because I didn't have that. I didn't have that mentor. I didn't have that support of how do I not burn out? And that wasn't just my first time burning out. Like, I remember I had the same thing where I was using my personal phone. I mean, you didn't have another phone back then, right? And I had the point where I'd wake up in the middle of the night hearing my phone ring and picking up, and my phone wasn't ringing. Like, you just constantly hear this ring,
Wow.
ring. Now, today it's different. We text more. So you're on your phone more, but sometimes you forget to look up and breathe, right? I get it. Like, I still have that. My busyness is a little bit defined differently than the way you have it right now, but I remember that for a long time. And I still, like, even this morning, I talked to 2 of my great clients I've dealt with over the years that are struggling right now because of inflation and just wanted that emotional support. So I don't think you get away from that. When you care about people, you're constantly having to give more, but you have to learn really very good foundational grounding techniques to help fill your bucket. And sometimes you do that by having the worst case scenario of collapsing, or to your point, like what your burnout defined. I'm not sure what that looked like for you, but you have to find ways to be able to take the time and make sure that you're well physically and mentally to continue that growth, because you're doing amazing work, my friend.
Thank you.
And your growth is exponential. Like, I'm excited and so privileged to be able to be part of that. But you have to make sure you take care of yourself, because there's no point. And that's something I would say to my younger self. Stop proving, right? You're worth it. It's going to organically grow because you're doing the right work, but bring balance to your life. I didn't do that enough. I really didn't. And I was balancing kids too, right? So I had a son in competitive hockey that lived in Toronto. I lived here. I don't even know how the heck we all did it, but my husband and I, we ended up doing it. My daughter does competitive horseback riding, and they're not lacking. They wouldn't say to you that they lacked seeing me over the years. They understood that it's a lot of work to have purpose in your life. You know what? It's a lot of work. And I think that you can teach that to your children, but you can teach it to anyone, right? If you have strong purpose in your life for what you do, it's a lot of time and a lot of work, but great, I think effort and hard work brings great rewards. Right?
And it's okay to burn out.
Yeah. So just know you've got people in your corner.
Yeah.
And people that can sit down and really look and understand your business to say, okay, this is what you need at this point.
Right?
That's and know that you're not alone, because I did it alone way too long.
I say this to Suzanne a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I needed underwriters. I didn't know that I needed a coach. I was doing it for the first time. I didn't know
Yeah.
how the summer looks like because it was the first summer.
Yeah.
And it was a very different summer, right?
Yeah.
So we were
Yeah.
in a very different time. And that's where I think, I really value the having coaches
Yeah.
around me. So from your experience, did you have a coach at that time when you were burning out, when you were hustling? Let's go back to
Yeah.
your mid 20s, maybe
Yeah.
early 30s, when you were doing a lot of things on your own, but you said that you will change a few things. But did you have a coach guiding you? Because no.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I didn't have one.
Okay.
I didn't have one. I didn't, but my husband's in the industry and was always super supportive. So I had a lot of good support and strength. He always believed in me, and I honor that so much. When I said, I just can't keep on going, he's like, you're going to do it. Like, you've got this, right? But no, I did 283 files 1 year with a part-time assistant.
Wow.
And paperwork myself. And this is when we signed up people, like not digitally, bringing in the office. Like my daughter would sleep in the room beside while I would sign up clients at night. I would quickly go home and get them from school and bring them to the office. Because back then, like, you had to have an office, right? Like you couldn't meet at a coffee shop. We didn't do that stuff. I did what I needed to do. And all I thought is I had to help. Here I'm helping another family. I'm helping a single mom. I'm helping this couple. It was just, that type of mindset. So you do get burnout 100%. I learned from burnout. I learned from burnout, figuring it out on my own. Someone said to me in this industry 2 weeks ago, I was at a women's summit and I spoke there. And there was over, I think, 600 women from the industry, which was really nice to be in a room. Like, yeah, it was, what? I was just like, yeah, you know what? This is a good thing. And someone asked me the same question, like, who was your mentor? Who was your coach? I'm like, no one. And then someone came up to me and said, you know what, Tracy, you're self-made. And I thought, yeah, you know what? I think I am. Like, I do. I think that that's why I am so resilient. I just worked through it and figured it out. It might have taken me longer because I didn't have that. Like, oh, you need a full-time person doing documents. You need this. I just figured it out. What I knew very quickly, though, my gift is connection. It's really looking someone in the eye and understanding authentically where they are at. It's that conversation to build that trust, to be able to help people. That was my gift. The paperwork and getting the formalities, because I think financing is a formality. It's what I call the play of life. It's not the reality of where we're here. When you can get through that where the person can trust you, the financing then becomes secondary. And that's when I realized I needed someone to work on that. And that's how I built that separately from what you and I are gifted. Because my friend, you're gifted in that gift of conversation and the gift of connection. So having someone do the documents, having someone work through the solutions on the financing, and they love it, that's what we built, right? So that all you need to do is focus on the connection of more people and making more impact. And that is what I think this industry needed back then. They need it today. It's that heart-centered community. That's why I always say heart-centered, right? Heart-centered community strong. And I was told very young when I established that, kind of pillar of what that mission is, that was weak leadership. That was not the strength of being a successful owner or a business leader in that. And I still fostered through with it. And look where we're at today. Like, it is probably one of the more pivotal changes for leaders today than ever before. So I think I'm a bit of ahead of the game on my thought process than where we're at. And that's why I think that, what we're doing in the space you're in and how to create not getting burnout, we can build on that so that you continue to fill your bucket just with impact.
No, that's amazing. And,
Yeah.
I have all the gratitude to have support from people who are so experienced and telling me exactly what I don't know, because I don't know what I don't know. I don't know how the summer looks like. I don't know that I need underwriters. And, I just stumbled upon Valko as my first brokerage ever. So I don't have anything to compare with.
Yeah.
But I can say it from my heart, but it's the best brokerage.
Thank you.
So you have built something that's different.
Yeah.
Talking about change,
Yeah.
right? I think you have seen a lot of change from the way you used to market. You talked about door knocking to social media. You said that you are ahead of the game a lot of the times, and you are one of the very few brokers who I see from like being so experienced who is on social media. So what changed that? Like,
I love marketing.
Okay.
I just love marketing. I always have. I said I should have opened up a marketing company years ago. I really should have. Like, honestly, if I had I just don't have the time, right? I just love it. I always look, like I'm driving or I wake up in the morning, I think of an idea or I look at something, I'm always looking at what changed. I mean, and I should dial back, because when I first started marketing, I did what I call grassroots content marketing. And what I did was, because I didn't have a lot of money back then, but I knew having impact was showing presence in the community. Like, what was I going to do where people would look at me in the same lens as a bank? My competition back then, if you call it competition, was the banks, right? We didn't have a lot of market share back then on the brokerage space. So I called the police station and asked them, what's the highest rate of accidents in what intersection between Kitchener and Waterloo? And they told me it was on Ottawa and Homer Watson. And I went to that intersection and I watched. I spent pretty much almost a whole day there, sitting there watching how much traffic went through that area. And they used to have bench signs back then. So I called the bench sign company, and there you go. I put it was $187 a month, which was pretty expensive back then. My husband says, don't do it. You're going to go bankrupt. I'm like, well, let me try. Let me just try. Well, you know what? Nothing the first month, nothing the second month, nothing the 6 months, nothing even the first year. But after that year, I started getting calls. And I got calls that were very interesting, because the calls were saying, well, I've seen you everywhere. You do mortgages. Can I talk to you about my mortgage? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. No problem. But you said you saw me everywhere. Where would that be? Well, I was driving in Kitchener. Well, where were you driving? Well, we were on Ottawa. So it turned out to be one call. Then it was a second call. And it ended up being one of the biggest generators of a lot of my income from one bench sign. That turned into me strategically posting bulletin boards in different areas, because back then we were allowed to do that in different areas. And one was, a lot of times I would pick in front of banks, because we were able to do that. So, I think I was creative in what I looked at, and it gave the perception that I was everywhere, and I really wasn't. And I went to a lot of events. Remember, I used to go to a lot of events. So, it changed over time, absolutely. The grassroots content isn't where we're at today, but the social media for sure was. And how do you niche that? Because that changes, as you know, like it changes every day.
Yeah.
The algorithm, what you need to do. I think that's the challenging part that I thrive on, is what is it that we have to do differently to change that pendulum? I mean, I don't think I'm anywhere near where we should be with it, but I think that we're definitely in a space where people are constantly saying you're making impact on social media. And that's, when you have that, I think you've got a good segment of what, some success there on that. And to your point, why we do podcasts, right? We're changing the spectrum. A lot of people that have been in it as long as me aren't even doing that anymore. They're becoming, I say, lazy in that field, thinking the business is just going to come. Well, it's not. It's about making impact. How do you make impact? It's changing the lives for people coming into the space that are new, right? It's not just your existing book. Of course, you got to nurture and take care of people, but you want to constantly be helping other people coming into it, right? So, being creative on social media and being able to provide education and support, and people know that you're there. Just knowing you're there is going to get you the business, like you do, right? So it's always ever changing. I mean, look at AI's coming into this space. What does that look for us? What does that look like for us in our field? How are we going to change? And I think, that's going to be interesting going forward too. So it's just constantly, marketing is just, you're going to be always in that learning space.
Because I think the attention is changing. Back then it was at that Homer Watson Ottawa crossing. And now it's on social media, because the first thing that people do is to look at their phones in the morning. So I think we need to be where there is attention. And the attention is on social media right now. It could be something very different, maybe VR or whatever, right?
100%.
So we just need to be there then.
And I think that my competition now is social media. I speak about it all the time. The biggest challenge we have in this industry, or any industry, is how do we beat out social media before we actually get on social media? And what I mean by that is, over 74% of Canadians right now look at 3 articles the first thing in the morning before they get up. Well, what are these articles? They're all negative. It's all the catastrophic titles of, 4 in 5 people are going to lose their houses because of rising interest rates. Over 50% of, millennials feel they'll never be able to buy a home. It's going to take 25 years to save for a down payment. We're fighting that. That's our competition, right? So it's the challenge of the mind, and how do we communicate that on social media authentically? Because we're not in front of the person. I'm not looking at them in the eye. I'm looking at a camera. So we even have to be even more intentional in our messaging. And in a busy world, and you and I as busy as we are, how do you craft being intentional to someone looking at them in the eye and them being able to pick up the phone and say, yeah, I trust what she's saying. That's a gift, right? And not everyone can do that, right? So I think that's you. I know you can, for sure. I know I can. And that's why, there's very few of us in this space that can be able to get that message across, right? And impact more people, which I think is exciting. Like, this is the opportunity where you look at the negativity of social media and what it does, but then we can bring the optimism and the positivity because we can change it, right? And we can make more of a difference with the mass of people that reach has that we couldn't do on grassroots content, right?
Because it's not the last recession. It's
exactly.
not. I think fear is a massive driver because inherently a lot of people, including me and you, we have fears, and when we hear a news that's negative, and I think about this a lot, when you hear a news that's negative, that just fuels that fear. And it just, like inside you're like, no, I'm not going to do this, right? And then, when someone says something positive, you actually have, look at it with skepticism. And even if that person is authentic, you would be like, no, I'm not going to listen to it, right? So I think it's hard, you're right. I've never thought about this way, that my biggest competition is social media and all the negative news around it. But that's fascinating. I really feel that we talked about balance, we talked about doing the right things, we talked about community, like people who are just lost, like I see a lot of people who are lost. They call me and they say, Navjot, I don't know what to do. Inflation is so high, I think I'm going to lose my job, I don't know what to do. Like, how do you bring drive? Like, you have had so many conversations with people and they come to you with problems. But most times you're almost like, you have the solution right there. You just need to do this. But how do you get them to do it themselves? Because I just find if I tell someone to do it a certain way, they would not do it. Like, through your numerous communications with a lot of, sentiments that come from fear, how do you motivate them from where they can actually take action?
It's a great question. I mean, it's hard. You can tell people, but ultimately they're going to do what they want to do. And we have to remember that I go back and I continuously talk about trauma can affect a lot of people. Everybody has trauma, whether it's, I call it, big trauma, small trauma, it's still trauma. And we're especially challenged in that space because of COVID. I mean, think about it. 3 years ago, we all thought we were going to die. We did. At some point, we all had an idea something bad was going to happen. Now we've moved through it and, we're here where we're at today, but that has an effect. It has a profound effect on the way people think. Why I say a headline on social media could cause the narrative of that day for that person, that conversation that you're having with someone who reaches to you on the phone saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know how, I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to do this. When the solution is that potentially it's refinancing, they've got lots of equity, we can consolidate their debt, we can look at getting them into, rates are higher, but it's better than paying 20% on credit cards and living, day to day on that. Their solution. But some people, when they're in such a dark space and dealing with trauma, and especially going through a pandemic, which we will not see in our lifetime again, right? There's profound effects on that where people will be stuck and not be able to work through that. So it doesn't matter what you and I say, and it doesn't matter how authentic and how long we've been in the business and how successful we are, they're going to do what they're going to do. And we have to accept that, right? So you can spend the time to talk to them, educate them, give them guidance, and give them a path of being able to be successful in their finances and a solution. But ultimately, they have to take the first step. But here's the thing. What I learned is that if they don't take the first step, know, and you need to tell them that you will always be there, right? So that when they do want to come back, you've got a safe space for them to take that first step. And that's one thing I learned. I learned to be able to speak my truth, but to be able to walk away with grace and to be able to still keep an open heart for them with no judgment. And that takes time. And that to me is the true essence of leadership, because it's leadership on how you manage yourself and your emotions so you don't get burnout. Because I've had some very traumatic conversations with people. I have saved people's lives. I know that by my conversation with them. And I've had very disheartening conversations with people that aren't open to making change because they're so much in their trauma. But Navjot, we can only do what we can do. But knowing that we're always there, I think is a huge success, and that's a win. So no, it's not the transaction, it's not the mortgage, it's not the compensation. Why I say that to any agents or broker coming in, you better be here for the right reason, because you're going to have some really hard conversations with people.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
But I did my first private mortgage. You almost got
sick to your stomach, right?
Yeah.
I know.
And I was like, shit, that's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to, tell
It is.
people the truth,
It is.
So it's sometimes, like heartbreaking. And Simran knows that, my wife knows that I was devastated that night.
Yeah.
And I had to tell them that, oh, you have to do this. And I'm like, shit, why do you think a lot of there's so many brokers, right? Not just in Canada, like just about Ontario, there's so many, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think a lot of brokers don't make it in years of experience that you have mentored, trained, coached, seen a lot of brokers? Why do you think they don't do well?
I don't think they're here for the right intention. I think there's a huge percentage, like it's almost close to 90% that don't. There's a very small percentage that actually make it successfully in this. You have to be in the right intention. They look at it, they think that, the ones that are successful, they look at, oh, I want that life. I want that income. I want to be able to do this and buy this for my family or buy this for myself. And they're not in the right intention. They don't build the strong foundation. And most of them don't have the support, because nowadays you definitely need, as you know, the support and the mentorship and the tools to make you successful. Because mortgage financing is complicated. Whether it was super complicated when I first came in. Yeah. I mean, we didn't even have, you had to have 25% down back then, right? I did a lot of private financing. It was just the space we were in at the time. But I think that people are not here for the right intention, but that's in any field. So there's a lot of attrition, right? A lot of attrition in this industry for it. Why I'm super passionate about education and making sure the right people get into this industry, but you can't control it all. Like I can't control who comes in and who doesn't. And I think there should be standards, which I know that as the regulatory bodies for each of the different provinces are working on, more measures and more education platforms so that it's not an easy way to get a licensing. We'll see that actually probably increase more, which is good. It should be. And we should have that. And it should be a niche market to get into, because you're affecting people's lives and the house they live in, and a roof over their heads with their families, their children. Like that's a huge responsibility. And I don't think 1 week of a course gives that enough merit. I've never thought that. So that's why you see a lot of attrition in this industry, because 1 week doesn't define you as a broker, right? And unfortunately, when I first came into this industry, that was a lot of the conversation where people thought brokers were about high rates, fees, privates. Like no one talked to me for the first 5 years, I'm going to tell you, about a competitive A rate. No one did. No one thought a broker back then was about getting you the best rates, the best options, the best solutions, the education. That was a long path in itself. So we've come a long way from there. I'm very proud of that. But I think that's why you see a lot of people not being successful in it, because they're not in the right intention with it.
I think you also need a really strong why. Like you said that, did you at any point feel in your career that you were doing it to prove someone else?
So,
and if it changed, I think it changed because when I see you now, you're doing it for yourself. Like, what was that point when it changed? If you know,
no, It's a great, yeah. As I reflect, I mean, I think that my life has always been like, I got to prove my worth. I got to prove my worth, whether it's somebody in this industry or just in general. That shifted a long time ago for me. But being in a space in this financial industry, which is very male dominated, and constantly being told, even, you know, as successful as I was and entering into being a brokerage owner 5 years ago, I was told back then as a woman, you're not going to be able to do this. Well, I don't take that very kindly, let alone now you know I'm going to do it, right? So, yeah, then I'm proving a point. But that shifted over the last few years where it's like, I'm not going to let that person or that situation, that group of people define me by my gender or myself. I'm going to do it because I want to be making impact. And I want to fill my why, like you said, your why. So that's where that shifted for me.
Do you believe in regret?
I don't really believe in regret. I believe in lessons. I think that people come in your life for a reason and a season. And I think you can grow from that and it makes you a better version of yourself. Everybody that has said something to me of no, I'd stand them in a line today and thank them because I'm the person I am today. And I had to be resilient. I've been in a lot of challenging spaces where I have almost lost loved ones. And with the strength I had and, you know, where I've been able to get to the success that I've had, I've been able to save some lives. And I respect that in myself. And you have to find respect and love in yourself. It's not an ego thing. It's, I made a difference in people's lives and I continue to do that.
So Tracy, I can go all and on, but I have the final 4 questions for you.
Okay.
It's kind of going to be a rapid thing, but you can take,
we'll see
you know,
if I
as
can
much.
answer. All right.
Yeah. So what's the best advice that you ever received and from whom?
Actually, yes, very good question. I had a therapist told me once that you can love people, but love them from a distance. And I think that's one of the most profound lessons I learned, and that's in everything. And I think that comes down to that you don't have to feel obligated to change the world for everyone, especially if they're in your immediate space, whether it's family or I consider people that I deeply care about family. But you can still love and appreciate them and still have your distance to make sure that you're, you know, good in your loving space that you need to be in.
Yeah, that's good advice. What's the worst advice that you ever got? I think we talked a lot about it, but what's the worst advice that you ever received?
Worst advice that I ever received, I don't know if it would be advice. I think it's just like the statement of no. Just no. Like, no, you can't do this because you're a woman and not smart enough. Couldn't go to university because I wasn't smart enough. That's what I was told. No, you can't be a lawyer because a woman doesn't do that. No, you can't be, you're not going to be an agent. You're going to be an administrator because you're a woman. No, you're not going to own a brokerage because you're a woman. Like, no, 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 no. And so I take that no and I make it a yes.
That's powerful. Now, this is a very different kind of a odd question, but if you were made the president of this world for one day, what's that one rule that you would make or one bill that you would pass that everyone has to follow?
Wow. That's a great question. Wow. You actually got me on the spot now, Joan. I mean, how could you, you know what? As this might sound kind of cliche, but honestly, wouldn't it be nice, like if you could pass a bill and just say, you know what, everyone has to be kind to one another. You just have to be.
And that solves so much in this world.
Right?
Like so much.
Like I think if we could just be kind.
Yeah.
No judgment, just kindness. What a different place this would be, right? And, you know, just from when you grow up, right? Like just from when your foundational well-being, I think starts from when you're, you know, learning the fundamentals of learning how to walk or how to talk or when you first go to school. And everything was just kind, right?
Yeah. That would solve so much, including where we are today, high
Exactly.
inflation. Like it solves
Yeah,
economic
really,
problems
right?
as well, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's
That would be it.
yeah, that's
Maybe
good.
I will
That's
be
good.
one day.
Absolutely. One last question.
Okay.
So if you were to take someone out for lunch or dinner, if you had one wish, it could be someone who is dead or alive. One wish, who would that person be and why?
Now, you've got some great questions. You know who it would be? It's my spiritual teacher who has passed away. He actually passed away on my birthday, December 22nd, a few years ago. And that's Ram Dass. And yes, I would love to take him out for dinner or lunch. And
what would you say to him? Like, is there any advice that you're looking for?
You know what? I would just thank him. He really did change my world. He talks about one love, that there's not a he or she. It's just one person. Like we're all the same. And the reality of where we're at in this world is really, truly, we're actually just in a play, right? Every day is just a play. And the reality of where we need to be is about where we are in our heart and being no judgment, loving one another, caring for one another. It's, again, going back to it's not complicated, right? So I've taken a lot of lessons that I learned. Actually, I listened to, he's got a podcast still. Like he's got tons of different speaking venues that he was at across the world in India. And I've learned a lot. I listen to him every day. My son and I do quite a bit. And it keeps me grounded. It keeps me in that place of kindness and making that impact for the right reason. And, not letting the ego get in the way, right? Like just really being authentically in that place of care and love. Because at the end of the day, that's exactly what he did. He just shared the message of love and no judgment. We are all the same. We're all one. And I think I would take him out.
That's amazing. Tracy, I'm sure that whoever is listening to this podcast got some positive motivation when they hear no. I think that was the powerful lesson that I at least got. When people say no, you need to channelize that energy into doing something constructive, and you have built something that has made life a lot easier. And I can say that as part of your team, a lot easier for people who are, walking your path or trying to walk your path. So I would like to congratulate you on whatever you are doing for the community, and you continue to do that. And thank you so much for doing this with me.
Oh, wow. It's been such an honor to be with you, Navjot. I love what you do. I'm inspired, and that's what we need to do. We all just need to be inspired, no matter how long we've been to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.